Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Suncoast APA meeting today for the Ford Pinellas presentation on engaging the public during a pandemic. My name is Angela Ryan, and I am just going to make sure my video is being shown. Okay. My apologies, it is just a bit disabled right now. 1 second. There we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for being patient. Again, my name is Angela Ryan. I have with me today Sarah Caper as well as Amy Elmore. We are all from Ford Pinellas, and we're very pleased to talk with you about engaging the public during a pandemic. And we're all in this interesting situation together where we have come together as a global community to try to address, these outreach needs of the public from our planning profession perspective. It's certainly a common problem for everyone in the world right now is how to communicate with other people, how to have meaningful and real connections. Our new normal, as you can see here on the screen, is completely upside down. It's certainly, we can add some humor here, on the right hand side corner, with our audio only versus our, video, our Zoom personalities. But certainly we've all come together to try to adapt and overcome these challenges of living through a pandemic. And the COVID adaptations that we have implemented at Ford Pinellas, of course, include remote work capabilities like most of the country. And that includes solely virtual board meetings to recently hybrid board meetings. And our public engagement strategies have been multifaceted. They've included utilizing online tools to the maximum extent practicable. We've conducted outdoor public workshops, which we're going to give some detail about in a few minutes. We've recently, as I indicated, moved these hybrid committee and board meetings, and I must say, with a level of difficulty and some funny stories along the way. And we've also developed some really fun ideas like a virtual scavenger hunt and an online art contest. And what we've really tried to do through the course of the last year is just monitor these changes and adapt and go through, the process as a community, and understanding that first people needed to learn Zoom, and everybody was stuck in their houses, and then everybody became Zoom experts. We've definitely seen a lot of interesting changes with the way that we travel. For example, at Ford Pinellas, we collect trail counter data, which has shown ranging from 50 to 180% increase of people in the trail. And then our traffic data has demonstrated a huge reduction through COVID in regards to the amount of crashes, as well as the amount of traffic on the road as well. So certainly we're all adjusting to this new normal. So what have we really done? We've all been confronted with this situation and used different skills. What we here at Ford Pinellas have really focused on are three main ideas of innovation, ideas, and industry. So our innovation was a quick transformation from in-person to virtual concept. We're going to talk about these exact events that were scheduled, and literally we had to cancel them the day prior to the actual event occurring. We had to transform that. We still wanted the event to happen. We just had to find it in a virtual capacity. And ideas. We had to work with the public, work internally, work with different partners that we hadn't been able to engage in different ways to find out how can we communicate with people solely through computers? How can we do it and be effective and still be meaningful? Lastly, industry. We've all learned new skills. I know my son has certainly taught me a lot of new apps that I knew nothing about before COVID-19 set in. And the industry perspective is really capitalizing on the tools that we have and embracing new technology that we can use to better communicate. Here's a few examples for us to discuss of some of the events that we had which were an in-person component, and we were able to transfer that to a virtual component. And this is our Homes for Pinellas Virtual Summit webinar series. This was an in-person event that was planned and had to be rescheduled and had to be done entirely virtually. The way that we were able to do this was to have 5 different webinars, all again on affordable housing. And we were able to bring in different experts for the different webinars. It was a huge success. We had 500 participants and already 650 views from those webinars. At the end of our webinar series, we were able to unveil this new website, this new Advantage Pinellas website. In addition to that, we also introduced a compact for affordable housing here in Pinellas County. This was a great success. It was in the fall, people were comfortable using Zoom and the other webinar platforms, and it was able to be accepted by the public, well attended, and overall a success. And for our Bike Your City event, this is a huge transformation. Every March, Forward Pinellas has planned a biking event, which is in person, and it's a group ride for about 5 years. And our group ride was scheduled. We had everybody signed up. We had donations for food in the office. We were ready to go, and we literally had to cancel it just a few days prior because it was in March, and it was at a time where there was just too much uncertainty. The state of Florida was not shut down at that point, but we didn't know. There was a lot of scientific uncertainty. And at this time, we thought the best case scenario, shut it down. We're not going to have the event. It was a huge disappointment. A lot of our members of our BPAC, as well as our other committee members, were really looking forward to this group ride that they've been participating in for years. However, internally, we talked about new ideas. Again, brainstorming, using the industry, the technology we have, and these new methods, we were able to come up with a Bike Your City scavenger hunt. And this was actually developed with an Esri platform. It was really fantastic. It's an app, and people were able to find 20 different locations in Safety Harbor that we had organized, prior for them. And they were able to take a picture of themselves at each location and download it. And we were able to receive that information. It was an incredible success. We had 558 participants, over 1,500 scavenger hunt submissions. In addition to the online platform, we also had an in-person portion, which was our partnership with the Safety Harbor Art and Music Center. And for that particular project, SHAMC was able to provide specific days through October where people could come in and they could work on this really beautiful mosaic. And our artist at SHAMC was able to ensure social distancing. And here in the picture, you can see some riders. They were out doing their scavenger hunt in October, and they went ahead and stopped at one of the locations and contributed to the mosaic. And now this mosaic, which is extremely large, it's a really big piece. It's a permanent display downtown Safety Harbor. So it's actually a silver lining through a really difficult time that we were still able to get together and celebrate biking, celebrate safety and pedestrian and cyclist awareness through a really difficult time, and do it in a group way, but again, in a safe capacity. So really, what did we look at? We looked at what are our needs? What is it that we really want to communicate? What are the takeaways that we want the public to have from these experiences? And we had to really measure the amount of time that people would be engaged. Right now, we're talking for 30 minutes, but certainly, we could talk here at Forward Pinellas about this specific topic for hours on end. We're all really passionate about outreach, and we've learned so much, and we'd love to share all of our hilarious and difficult stories with anyone who would listen. But really, is that going to be impactful for the public? Are they going to be able to pay attention or even be interested? Probably not. 30 minutes or maybe a bit longer is really the appropriate time frame. And of course, in person or on their own time, that's another important component. Our art event, for example, at Bike Your City, that was on the weekends. And people could, on their own time, go through the scavenger hunt, whenever they had time, as long as they'd registered. And moving on, I'm going to introduce Sarah Caper, who's going to provide the next portion of our discussion.
Thank you, Angela. And so we wanted to provide a little bit of an update for you on some of our other events. This is the Safe Streets Pinellas virtual campaign. Um, the Safe Streets Pinellas is the Forward Pinellas Vision Zero effort. And this is another event that we had planned a summit in person at the end of March that we had to quickly pivot from and rethink. And it relates back to what Angela just mentioned. We thought a lot about what we wanted to do, why we wanted to do it, and what kind of input we wanted from the public. We developed this campaign that happened last summer, and we provided information like a story map that we released along with an interactive map for public comments, which we'll share with you in just a moment. We also had an art contest, a virtual trivia game that we had in person planned for flashcards, and so we took those flashcards virtual and turned it into this trivia game. We thought in person we'd have people sign pledges, and so we switched that to online with two different options. For people who are comfortable taking their own picture or selfie, they could do that, but we also did a Google form so that people could sign up without that image if they didn't feel comfortable. And then having videos and other supporting things to go with that was really important to us to give some of the context that we would have done in person. And you can see here's the interactive mapping exercise and a heat map that shows the comments we received and where they are. This is something we had originally planned that people in person could use a map and put dots on, an exercise we've done, I think many of us have done before. But instead, we're able to use some of these tools that would have been available to us previously, but that we hadn't explored fully. And so we're able to also get more comments from a greater range of people throughout the county because they could do this one on their own time. We also hosted a number of demonstration projects. Some of them were in person with socially distanced behaviors. Other were virtual ones, and a lot of them had educational components that people could follow along on their own time. So for example, we did an education event with Pinellas County and the city of Clearwater at a location where a woman was killed and a rectangular rapid flashing beacon was being installed. And we were able to work with the family of the woman who was killed to do this educational event, but then also provide literature and other information about how to use RRFBs safely and why it's so important to have these different types of safety devices that people could do on their own time. We also had a tent up, so if people were riding the trail location, we gave out water and some other materials for them. And so we're doing a number of events like this where we're testing different scenarios, different types of projects, and how people can be engaged. Another event we had this past year was in December. We hosted an outdoor workshop. Our goal was to reach all of the Forward Pinellas committee members along with some other interested parties. This is something that we would have done in person, but maybe not to this scale. And we were able to use a park in the city of Clearwater. We sent people times and allowed them to change their time, but so that people would arrive staggered timing. We used our stencil with the Safe Streets Pinellas logo and sidewalk chalk to show what 6 feet looks like so people could understand what that socially distanced space was. We required masks. We had very little, if any, touching. We used QR codes and provided materials to people that they could take home with them, not give back to us. At the same time, if people weren't comfortable being there in person, we also had an online option with the same information so that people could follow along even if they weren't comfortable being there. And this is an example too of where there are limitations because of sunshine laws where you might not be able to fully meet virtually, where you could have some of that in-person activity in a safe way. We also are working currently with the City of St. Petersburg and the Florida Department of Transportation on a downtown St. Pete mobility study. And we originally had planned for workshops where we could talk to people, have a couple of them scheduled in different locations, and we quickly had to pivot on that as well. And we decided to hold online listening sessions. We hosted 4 of them. We originally had 2, and we very quickly realized 2 was not enough. And so we invited different community groups, the public to attend, and we also used breakout rooms in Zoom so that we could get that more personalized feedback, have more of a discussion, but also bring people together at common times that would work for people and limit the number of presentations we did so everyone could be together for a presentation break out, and then return again. And we also used Mentimeter polling to help us synthesize some of the ideas. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy to talk about lessons learned.
Thanks so much, Sarah. That was excellent. And you guys did some really incredible work putting together the outdoor workshop, especially, I think was just a huge success. And it really achieved the goals we wanted to achieve by keeping people socially distant, but also providing them that information. So that was excellent. My name's Amy Elmore. I am the Communications and Outreach Manager here at Forward Pinellas. And I actually started back last year during the pandemic, completely virtually. So there are still members of my team I have only met virtually. And figuring out outreach solutions during a pandemic has pretty much been my whole job so far. And there have been a lot of things that we've learned over the past couple of months and past year that have really shaped the way that we do outreach now, but also the way that we want to do outreach in the future. So some of the things that we learned, one of the biggest lessons through this crazy, strange adventure was to plan for the unplannable. When you have, technology and people, things are going to get interesting. So we often say that we have contingency plans for our contingency plans. And just remember, it's okay if things aren't perfect. My godmother always used to tell me that success is not about never making a mistake. It's about learning from every mistake you make. So, more than anything, and most importantly, be quick to adapt to things if it doesn't go as planned. If your video's not working, if your sound's not working, if something's going wrong on the screen, in virtual environments especially, be quick to adapt and just keep going with it. So next we realized pretty quickly that we already had a lot of the resources that we needed to switch to a virtual platform. We just had to utilize them. We figured out we have to go with the flow. Don't worry if something didn't work exactly the way we thought. Earlier this year, we were giving a presentation, the three of us were giving a different presentation to a different conference, and Angela started talking and her video went out. And we had to just jump in there and support each other and be there for each other and to keep the train going. Another example is that for our online campaign with our Safe Streets Summit, we had originally planned for an 8-week virtual campaign. But we soon realized that it was really going to be best for our audience if we gave them a little bit more time to complete some of the components we had planned. And we ended up pushing it out to about 12 weeks. So most importantly, listen to your audience and make sure that you're giving them what they need. Angela's got a really great story about staying flexible and, not sweating the small stuff. To set the stage, we were trying to figure out how to hold hybrid meetings by utilizing the technology we already have. Angela, I'd love for you to hop on and tell that fun story.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. So it seems as if I always have the tech issues. That's my curse. At any rate, we had this hybrid meeting, and we'd had them already successfully with our Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and we used the same tech, and we were actually starting to get in the flow. Finally, we solved the issues with sunshine law and having a quorum. We had to have 10 people per our bylaws in the room for the quorum for the people to participate that we're going to attend by Zoom. We get everything ready. We have a microphone that is attached to a speaker, and that speaker is attached to a laptop. And the system is not designed to work with a mix of a hybrid and an in-person meeting. It's not. It's just not. That we are retrofitting, which is actually a nice way to say putting all this stuff together and just hoping it works effectively. Well, it did the first, couple times. Last time we had the meeting was a complete fail. Nothing worked. It was integrated system of, one thing affecting the other and a domino effect. And before we know it, none of the laptops are working with the speaker. The microphone's not working. It was really quite humorous. Our only saving grace is that we need one more person for the quorum, and they happened to be late. So we just said, well, we're working on some tech issues and we're just waiting for our quorum. But we just stayed calm, and despite the fact I have tech issues, I'm pretty quick at fixing them. So I just kept trying different methods, different laptops, and we were able to pull it off. It was actually a success.
Yeah, that's such a great story. And that's what it's all about, right? Just keep trying. Just keep trying, keep working with it. So I love that. And when you're doing virtual meetings, we really like to think of it like a show. That's one thing we've really learned here at Forward Pinellas is uh, all the world's a stage right now, and so when you're doing any kind of meeting, any kind of webinar, anything like that, think of it like a show. You've got the staff are the presenters are like the actors, your staff are your backstage people. You've got scripts, there's a run of show, you've got a dress rehearsal. So make sure, especially, that you're always using several people for several different roles. Don't try and do it all yourself. It's okay to ask for help and have someone who's just a moderator, have someone who's just a presenter, have someone who's just for technical support. Because even if you don't think that you'll need that, if something goes wrong, they come in handy real quick. So that's definitely something we learned the hard way, is just to support each other and don't be afraid to ask for that help. We also realized that planner speak is definitely a real thing. We knew that we needed to keep our message simple and understandable. And so we learned, bring in someone who's not a planner. Get their perspective on something. I'm pretty sure that we all owe our spouses quite a few steak dinners for all of the different surveys and plans and messaging that they've had to read over to say, hey, do you understand this? And I always say there's no such thing as dumbing it down. When I go to my mechanic, I'm going to go in and say, I don't know, the silver thingy is making a whir sound. And it's the mechanic's job to say, oh, your timing belt needs to be changed. They're a specialist in their field, just like we're specialists in our field. And so while they could probably say a lots of fancy mechanic words that to me I wouldn't know, they cut to the chase and they say, this is what's wrong with your car and here's how much it's going to be to fix it. That's what I need to know. That's what's going to be important to me. So it's not that we needed to dumb down our message, it's that we needed to cut to the chase and tell people why it mattered to them, especially in times like this. We also learned to never assume anything, especially that somebody knows how to use a specific technology. A great example is with our Bike Your City event, we used QR codes that people could go around to the different scavenger hunt location and take a selfie, scan the QR code, and then take a selfie and submit that as, hey, I found the scavenger hunt location. The problem was not everybody knew how to scan a QR code. So when we started getting some responses saying, hey, I don't know what you mean by QR code. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to do it. We had to quickly create a tutorial video and send that out to our participants so that they could understand what a QR code was and how to use that. So, and we also had to make sure that things were ADA compliant so that we were really reaching a lot of different audiences and including everyone. And remember, you're not going in this alone. You're part of a team for a reason. And it's going to take a lot of brains to come up with these innovative solutions so you can really engage your audience. We found that it was essential that we had brainstorming meetings, check-in meetings, things that maybe we wouldn't have had if we were in person, but we needed to have these types of check-in meetings even weekly to make sure we were still on track with these virtual projects. We had to focus on what our goal was at these meetings, what our goal was with these outreach components. What do we have right now that we could use, right? So for our Bike Your City, that was a great example. We had this GIS technology, but we had never really utilized it before. So by bringing in our GIS expert here at Forward Pinellas, he said, "Oh, yeah, I got you. We can do that." And so we utilized this technology and resources that we already had. So just make sure that you're really utilizing these resources the best way that you can so that we can achieve the goals that we need to achieve. And like Angela was talking about with our hybrid committee meetings, we're now being called to do something as planners that we don't have much, if any, experience in. But we know that if we want to reach everyone, truly everyone in our community, we have to keep some sort of virtual option right now. So this hybrid world is becoming a more important world to navigate. But there are some things that we're encountering that are pretty challenging to overcome, like sunshine laws. For our meetings, we're required to have an in-person quorum. But sunshine laws don't specifically go into exactly how that's handled in a hybrid format. And sometimes lawyers can have different ideas on exactly what the sunshine laws mean. So it's kind of challenging to figure all that out and navigate inconsistent waters, I should say. There's also the extra challenge of technology needs like microphones, projectors, speakers that we haven't really needed in the past, and we definitely haven't budgeted for. So trying to figure all of that out to get something that really works for us. And it's also been essential that we make people feel comfortable and safe when they are in person, whether that's finding conference rooms where people could socially distance, providing masks, sanitizer, tape on the floor, signs posted up, whatever that means to make people feel safe is a priority for us. We've also found that it's really easy when you're back in person, you get a little excited, and it's easy to forget about the folks on the Zoom call, right? So, we get to talking in an in-person meeting and we don't realize somebody in Zoom has a question. So be mindful of that, and having someone like that technology moderator who can step in and be that representative to say, "Hey, don't forget about the person in Zoom. Don't forget to talk to us in Zoom." That we found that that's really important. And the pandemic has definitely shown us that we can reach a lot of our underserved communities and engage with more people than ever before. So these virtual options are really just one tool in our toolbox, and we've got to keep that tool in our toolbox. So here you can see with our virtual Bike Your City, we had about 100 participants originally sign up for the in-person Bike Your City. But with our virtual option, we had over 550 participants. So many more people were able to get involved with us. We were also able to have this great art mural that we never would have done if it had just been an in-person event. We also, with our virtual Safe Streets campaign, we had, I think, 150 people register for the in-person summit, and we reached over 44,000 people online just through our social media. We engaged with 1,900 people during this 12-week campaign. And we had, again, this art component, this online art contest that we wouldn't have done in person. So it was really some nice lessons that we learned throughout these events of how we can engage our community that much more when it's virtual. In 2020 total, we've reached over 171,000 people on our social media, and we had 86,000 people view our website. 9,700 people viewed our blogs, and we had 81 news articles written. So without the story behind it, these really are just numbers on a page. What this means is that we're able to get our information into the hands of thousands of people that we had never or rarely reached before. And we were able to target specific communities with our message. We pushed out messages and videos in different languages that were ADA compliant. We saw a big increase in our followers, and we saw an increase with how many people were really engaged with us. So these numbers on a page really tell the story that through virtual options, we can reach a lot of people. So where do we go from here? How do we adapt all of these virtual techniques for new audiences? We want to know, what's going to happen when we're in person, and how can we plan for these things without knowing exactly when those in-person events are going to be happening? One of the things we're really working on it for Pinellas is figuring out, okay, let's say this is the new normal. We're doing hybrid events at least. How do we ensure that everybody's got access to technology so that they can interact with us if they want to? Are we going to partner with libraries throughout the county so that libraries can provide wireless access to those that don't have it? Are we going to reach out to our cultural centers, our churches? How are we going to really get involved in these communities so that we can ensure that maybe people who have a phone but don't quite know how to use it can still engage and interact with us? We're also making sure that everything we do, we want to improve our ADA compliance and give more multilingual options to allow people to get engaged with us. Our webinars able to have captions? Can they have translation tools? Is that something we can look at in the future? So those are just some things where we're headed and what we're looking at right now. And then how do we make sure that all of these new people that we're reaching, or people that we rarely reached in the past, how do we make sure to keep those audiences as we move forward? Is it just kind of a one and done type of deal where they've interacted with us now and then they're done? How do we make sure that they stay involved with us? So these are just some things that we're thinking about and we're trying to find solutions for. One of those things that we're doing to make sure people stay involved is we're just trying to keep the innovation pot going with new events, new ways of engaging, kind of new shiny things that we can get people involved in within our community. So we did a Bike Your City event back in October, and now we're doing a Bike Your Own City scavenger hunt for Florida Bike Month coming up in March. Right now, if you're available, you can, of course, register at forwardpinellas.org/Bike Your City. But throughout the month of March, people will be asked or challenged to find a specific list of scavenger hunt items in their own neighborhoods. So this might be a water fountain or public art, something that they can bike to in their own neighborhood and take a selfie with. We're also having Trivia Tuesdays where people will be able online to win prizes if they answer trivia questions correctly. And we're partnering again with Safety Harbor Arts and Music Center, where they'll provide these beautiful art lawn signs with our Bike Your City logo on them that people can customize, and it'll really look beautiful throughout the county to promote this event. We're also partnering with some local bike shops to get out there and help promote them and their business. So, and APA Suncoast is even a sponsor of this event. So, this is just an example of how we're going to keep trying to get those people engaged with us. And with that, I'd love to open it up for questions. And Angela and Sarah, if you don't mind turning your, uh, perfect, there you go, you read my mind. And we've got a question here about the interactive mapping tool that we used for Bike Your City. What tool did we use for that interactive map, Angela?
It's the Esri platform, the Survey 123. And we were able to use it quite effectively, like you typically would with the survey. And we actually had it geo-referenced as well, so people could, when they took their selfies, and then use essentially the survey to demonstrate what location they had found. We also had them pinpoint where they were on the map too, which is really great. Really simple, actually. After our first round, we're using it again because it was such a successful platform.
Yeah, and I think, Angela, one of the coolest things I thought about with the Bike Your City event we had was the webinar, the capstone webinar, where you unveiled the selfie map. So people could go in and they could see the selfies that everybody shared throughout the community. So they, at this capstone webinar at the end of the event, you had experts from all different fields come in and talk about bike safety, bike advocacy, and then we unveiled this bike selfie map, interactive map tool, which was really cool. And you can actually still see that on our webinar and our projects.
It was really beautiful. And as you guys, everybody that's here today knows, the whole purpose of these events is these type of biking events, it's a really education and advocacy. So if there's any way that we can get people to have fun and then learn and become advocates, for safety for pedestrians and cyclists and other vulnerable users, then that's just a perfect mix.
Absolutely, that's great. Sarah, this next question's for, I'll let you answer. What outreach was done to connect with minority communities, and what techniques did you find most effective?
Sure, so I'll start, and then maybe Amy and Angela, you can chime in as well with your experiences. So one of the things we looked at was our communities of concern. So communities of concern, we looked at our low income and minority community areas in the county. And we looked at that in relation to some of our exercises, like our interactive mapping, to see if we were getting responses in those areas. And we were able to use targeted Facebook posts to help promote more activity in the areas that we weren't seeing as much input. We've also reached out, we used a network, a lot of help from our other partners, from local governments and others doing work in the area, to see if they had any community partners or community groups we could reach out to. So for example, when we were doing listening sessions, we relied on reaching out to neighborhood groups, to leaders in communities, to some churches, to see if they had any insights or if they could represent their group at the listening session if their members weren't comfortable or able to attend. And we plan on using those kinds of resources more as we continue, because we know not everyone knows who we are, not everyone knows what we're doing. But if we can reach out to people that others know and are comfortable with, along with looking at technology and what we can do to reach out using kind of geolocation, we may be able to extend our reach and get more people engaged, as well as thinking about times and dates. So we've really been playing around and exploring having meetings virtually with different timing lengths, with different times of day, early morning, middle of the day, evening, just looking at what might be the most effective way to reach people.
And I'd like to contribute to that. We are conducting an equity assessment at Ford Pinellas right now, and it's something that we're doing entirely in-house. And it's something I'm working on with some other staff members. And we have reached out to equity experts such as Ms. Nadine Smith with Equality Florida, for example, and other experts in the field that represent not equity across all fields, but really we tried to find minority experts as well as experts from the LGBTQ and other, communities that we really wanted to be able to hear from. So we had these listening sessions and they were really quite intimate, one-on-one. And these again are with a lot of professionals or people that are with, in an NGO and they're working towards equity, they're working for the government, all these people with the university. Something we found through these listening sessions was that we had to question whose comfortability level are we questioning and not being in person. And really what we're doing with the equity assessment is we're going to do in person. We're going to be in people's neighborhood. We're going to be walking around. We're going to be at grocery stores. We're going to be at the church. We're going to be at community centers. We are doing it in person. And that's because, it really dawned on us that we are going to have this robust outreach that's going to be online, that's going to be surveys, but we really want to make sure that we're not missing anyone. And we are going to make ourselves a little bit uncomfortable as in safe, of course. We're still safe, 6 foot distance, like what Sarah did with her Safe Streets Pinellas, safe, use social distancing, but it needs to be in person for it to be effective. So we're using, like Amy has indicated, every tool that we have in our toolbox to contact people that are within the minority communities and ask them to, speak with us and that we want to hear their voices. Something else, and I'm sure that everybody's familiar with the excellent work that Kings County has done with their equity department. They have an entire department. Something that they mentioned to us that was really impactful was the importance of having paid people that are actually coming in as a stakeholder, but doing it more as a task force, so not necessarily a committee, but maybe you need to find, this was their suggestion, ways to pay them gift cards, buying their meal, these other avenues, things that you wouldn't necessarily think to do, but are going to be really meaningful when you're asking somebody that's working 2 jobs and they're going to have to find a babysitter for their child. They're going to barely be able to make it. They don't even have the resources to attend. Respecting that and honoring them and saying your expertise is so important to us. Your life experience is that equivalent to any consultant out there. And we value it so much. We want to honor that and we want to provide a financial incentive for you to speak with us. So we're really looking at doing things quite a bit differently.
I love that, Angela. And I think, the task force is such a great example of why it's so important to have both, because at the same time, maybe that mom with 2 kids who can't come to an in-person meeting, maybe we still want her input. So by having that
Mhm.
hybrid option, now we're able to really reach that full group. But again, maybe somebody isn't able to have that access to internet or would prefer to meet in person. So we've got to have the in person too, so it's really about reaching everyone. And that goes with one of our other questions we have, which was, how do we respond to concerns that online engagement tools exclude populations without access to computers or broadband internet? And you respond to that concern by saying that's true. That's true.
Mhm.
If you just do online, you do
Mhm.
exclude people that don't have access to online tools. That's true. We have to stop skirting that fact. That is true. It doesn't negate the importance of online tools and online engagement and how much we can reach through them. It just says this is another tool in our toolbox that we should be using. Because just like if you don't have that online engagement tool, you're excluding someone who doesn't have the resources to get to an in person meeting. What about people without cars?
Right.
or bikes, or has a job with 3 kids, or goes to school, or a firefighter who works 72-hour shifts. If we just have that in-person option, now we're excluding them. But if we don't have the in-person option, um, to um, to Matthew's point, we can exclude populations that don't have access to internet. Now, I will say that in order to try and remedy some of this, we are trying to partner with people who can provide this access for different populations. For example, a lot of times churches will help out with making sure people have a computer, a cell phone, some way of communicating with other people. Even libraries allow people to come in and have free access to their computer and their internet. Sometimes you can work with libraries so that they can show someone how to take a survey, if that's what you're trying to do. If you're trying to push out a survey or something like that, you can work with the libraries so that they have a shortcut to that survey on their computers at the library, and they have someone there who could help someone through that survey. So there are opportunities for you to partner with different agencies that are in these local communities that are easy to get to and easy to access for those different populations without computers or internet, that can really help and make a big difference when you're doing that online engagement.
Mhm, mhm. And Amy, we have definitely encountered that prior to having the hybrid in-person option, we had a committee member to, in fact, that were not tech savvy. And, I talked to with one of them over the phone for an hour, and they're like, it's not going to happen. The other person said, I just have a flip phone. It's not, this is not going to happen. I actually don't have a home
Right.
computer. So we offered for, despite the fact that we weren't meeting anybody else in person, I met in person with these people during the meeting and we were in a large conference room, opposite sides, and I had it up on the screen for them. We don't get that opportunity, unfortunately, because there's, with everybody that's in the community, but at least when people have expressed the fact that they don't have the capability to attend, we've tried to do what we can to go out of our way to meet them halfway so they could still attend.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Angela. So, Sarah, I'd like to ask you, what was one of the most challenging things you faced when you were planning your outdoor hybrid event for your committees?
A great question. I would say one of the most challenging things was thinking about something that would work outside.
Mhm.
Um, so often when we do events in person, we're inside and we have a closed environment. And when we were thinking about how to do something outside, we first had to think about where people could park, how people could walk around without walking by each other in a space, which is what drew us to parks. But then also, we couldn't put boards. We did have a couple boards that we had to take down, really sturdy uh, to easels, but generally we put things on tabletops and we had to take them down. So I was thinking about the logistics of having a lot of people walk by tables without interacting with each other. How do we get their feedback, but making sure that our setup wasn't flying away? So it was took a lot of thinking through and walking through and practice, but ultimately I think we were very successful in doing an outdoor event with this component for people who weren't comfortable in person, but really thinking about the space available to us.
That's excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah, it was definitely interesting trying to take down boards. There was a lot of innovative engineering that I think came out of a few folk. So we've got another question about the most effective method of communication to draw engagement. Is that email, mailed notices, social
Mhm.
media, something else? And I'll start the conversation, and Angela and Sarah, please feel free to jump in. It's really about the audience that you want to reach. And that's one of the things that I will say. If you hear anything in this presentation, for me, it's think about your audience. and think about what your audience needs. If it's board members and committee members, probably the easiest way and the best, most effective way is going to be to email them,
Mhm.
call them on the phone, get in touch with them somehow, and get that response where you know that they've seen what you need to put in front of their face. If it's somebody with the public, again, that with your social media, that depends on your audience. Your Facebook is going to reach kind of the population of 45 and older, and your Twitter is going to reach kind of the business owners, politicians, that sort of thing. And your Instagram is going to reach probably about 18 to 35, somewhere in there. So thinking about, which platform is going to be best for you, but social media, you really get a big bang for your buck when you do it right. Now, I will say you've got to build those relationships, and that does take some time. So if you haven't ever done social media before, there are definitely some tips I can give you, and I'd be happy to talk with you after this. But I think social media did give us a really big bang for our buck this year. We were able to push out information quickly, and but then that information often linked back to something on our website, linked to some other information that they could find out more about. So it's really about putting those pieces together. You've got your message. How are you going to get it out? If you can do email, news releases, uh, put blog posts, social media posts, that sort of thing, then that's great. If you can do it all, awesome. If you can do just one or the other, I'd probably say email first and foremost, because you're going to reach a lot of people who are what I call champions for your cause, and then social media. What would you
If I
guys
could
say?
chime in. Yeah,
Yeah.
so one of the things we also started doing is asking people the best way to communicate with them. If we had surveys or events, we would say, how did you hear about us? Did it work for you? Do you have a suggestion? And so we did hear a lot that people thought email was good. Some people wanted social media. And so always asking people if they have suggestions, if they have ideas, what's working for them, I think has been helpful for us to also understand with these different projects or types of outreach activities. Are there certain audiences that prefer to communicate a certain way? Some of it confirms what Amy said, what we kind of knew already or suspected, but it's always nice to check in if people are willing to give you some feedback.
That's a great point, Sarah.
Mhm. And it's something that we used with Bike Your City in October, and we're actually going to do it again this March, is flyers. And I haven't made a flyer for years. I can't even remember. I mean, maybe for like a lemonade stand when I was a kid. Or really, back to basics here. We wanted to get a lot of people out, people, in October as well, now in March, they're getting out a little bit more. They're seeing, a business and perhaps that flyer that is in the window. We're using flyers again. We want to get as many people out biking. So we're working with bike shops and other businesses to have them put up our flyers. Really simple, really basic, but really effective.
That's great, Angela. And I think, especially if you're in a local area where you really want to get that message out in a specific area to a specific audience, that can definitely be a very effective way to go. Excellent. So speaking about Bike Your City, one of our questions is, how did you come up with this idea to do a virtual Bike Your City? How did that happen?
Oh, what incredible innovation. Really the best part about working with the team, I think that we all know this, is the synergy that happens with different people and diversity and different perspectives. So there are just, several of us talking about what could we do safely during COVID with biking. And this was really early on when there was still a lot of concern about the virus being able to be spread from a cyclist to a cyclist. So people weren't even out in public biking. It was still really, again, scientific uncertainty, people with, serious health risks here. And we said, well, what if people just go by themselves when they can, and they, go look for these places in Safety Harbor like parks. And we were able to partner with Safety Harbor Inspired Planners, wonderful group. We're so grateful for them. They found all these incredible treasures. And we said, well, perfect, scavenger hunt. It was actually something that the Safety Harbor Inspired Planners had done years ago, another in-person thing. So we just tweaked it. We made it, again, specific for COVID as well as virtual, and for people to be able to do it by themselves and stay safe. Something I definitely want to say about that, the lesson learned. When you're converting something that you would explain personally, and I'm sure everybody knows this, or even in a meeting, it's so much simpler just to say it in a few sentences in person. But knowing that we had masses of people going out that we would never talk to, they may not even see our website. We had to be really careful about making the information as simple for everybody to learn and to pick up. So that was definitely a great lesson learned there about, how much more work it takes to make a message simple and widespread applicable. So we did a lot of infographics, we did a lot of fun things to make something, it's simple, but at the same time, it might not, be able for everybody to just catch on, just with, one email.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. I think I remember the first draft of the instructions were, pages long. And by the time we got done to it, it was a
Right.
infographic that
Yep.
said, step one, go here. Step
Mhm.
two, do this.
Mhm.
So it was just very cut straight to the point, and then we added videos with that to
Yeah.
say, hey, here's a video to talk about how we're going to do this and how we're going to move forward with that. And one of the most innovative things that I really liked about the event was that art project.
Mhm.
This is something that is placemaking. It beautifies our community. It promotes bike advocacy, and it gets people involved with local businesses and local nonprofits. I thought that was really great that we were able to cross promote with that, and kind of have that bike mural unveiling. So I thought that was really cool, and I'm glad to see that we'll be doing that again this year.
Mhm.
So excellent, excellent. So Sarah and Angela, I just wanted to see, what do you feel like is the most important lesson that you've learned the past year when trying to reach the public?
Don't make assumptions.
Think
Don't assume.
creatively.
Yeah, don't assume people can use the tech. Don't assume they're going to understand your jargon. Don't assume they're going to understand written instructions. No assumptions, and really carefully plan it out. Know your audience. Go through all the tips that Amy provided. Yeah,
Excellent.
go
And
ahead,
Sarah,
Sarah.
what were you saying?
Think creatively. I think exploring your options, thinking outside the box, just testing these different things. It's really important just to kind of open your mind to these ideas.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I'll say the most important lesson that I have learned throughout the past year that still continues to apply today is have grace with yourself and with other people. I think a lot of people say, well, it's been a year, everyone should have it figured out
Yeah.
by now. But the truth is, it's different. It changes constantly all the time. And we're always trying to adapt to these new situations. So have grace and forgiveness and patience with yourself and with other people when we're just doing the best damn job we can try and do, and to try and help each other and be there for each other. And we're planners. I think I've never met a planner who didn't care about people, and I think that's what we're trying to do, is just care. So with that, I will thank our everyone for being here today. This is qualified for 1 CM credit, which we will email you information for as soon as we can. If you do have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. I'll share our screen again so that you can see our emails, and we're happy to talk with you at any time if there's anything that you need. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for being here.